Welcome to level 4 from Pressure Approach Daily Drills. In this level, we're going to change our scale. We really got used to playing our C major scale and our arpeggio, along with different rhythm patterns and all of that. So we should be really familiar with our C major scale. Now we're going to change gears and move to the F major scale. So if you look at line number 1, the first part of learning a major scale is learning the first 5 notes. And remember, the pattern that we use with whole steps and half steps is starting on our tonic note, whatever note we're going to play our scale in, first going up a whole step. Remember, a whole step is 2 half steps, so F to G. Up another whole step is to A. Up a half step is B flat. This is the first 4 notes. We have that accidental on B, and then to make our 5-note scale, we go up another whole step. So B up to B natural, up to C is our whole step, B flat to C. So we are going to have an accidental. The accidental are these raised keys in this scale. So a couple of things that we need to cover with playing on an accidental is that, first of all, we like to play right in the center of the accidentals because it's right above the resonator, all right? If you're on a bell set, you don't have a resonator, but the best sound possible on any keyboard instrument is right in the very center. What we want to avoid is what is called the node. And the node is that space right where the string is. Obviously, if it's a string that's drilled through the key, that's going to make a terrible sound because there's a hole in the bar. So we want to avoid playing on that node where the string is. The other place that you can play when we get faster, we're going to incorporate this, is right on the edge, right? Very, very edge of the key, and it makes a pretty good sound. Doesn't sound nearly as good as the center. So what we're going to do in this exercise here is go towards the center of the bar. It's not so fast that you have to use the edge of the bar. So we're going to move from the center of the A to the center of the B flat. So as we're playing our first measure, okay, we're just on F. Now I'm going to position my body between the F and the C. So I have 4 strokes per note on F and G. Second measure, A. And then I have a B, but the flat sign is in the key signature. So we're going to go from A to B flat. Now that takes a little bit of motion, and I'm moving my arms, all right? I don't have to think of walking up to the keyboard and then walking back. That would be awkward, especially as we're moving back and forth. So really all I'm doing is taking my A with my hands in that great position, and then I'm moving my arms forward, and I'm still using that wrist stroke. So let's just practice that second measure a couple of times. Just doing it over and over. It's really not too hard. And then when you get to the third measure, or once I go from that B flat, I go up to C in the third measure. So now it's going from the B flat so you might practice that a bunch of times. So I'm developing that kinesthetic sense of what my arms and my hands and my mallets need to do to strike those bars. So right at the beginning of me working on this line, I'm looking at my hands, I'm looking at the beating area or the playing area to make sure that I'm right in the center. Now, 5-note scale, we're going to go from C, G, A, B flat. We skip the B natural and go to C, and straight back down. So the F 5-note scale has that B flat instead of B natural. So line number 1 looks and sounds like this. Up to the accidental, back down to the accidental, and then you repeat it. All right, notice I'm still using my great piston stroke. All right, I'm getting out of the way so I don't have to think of one mallet being on top of the other as I'm playing this. All right, so just lean a little bit in this direction and lean a little bit in this direction as you're playing that scale. That might take a little bit of time just to get that kinesthetic sense of where the A, B flat, back and forth. Then you can challenge yourself by looking away from the keyboard. All right, looking straight at your music using your peripheral vision is great. All right, I can kind of see the keys as I'm looking here, but you can also look a little further away and just start developing that sense of that motion that goes between the A, B flat, and C. All right, when you get to line number 2, it is our C 5-note scale. Now we played our C 5-note scale down in this octave, lower. Every C in here is called an octave. This is the low octave, the middle octave, the high octave, and then a really high octave. But now we're playing the same 5-note scale, but up here. So now I'm really shifting over and playing on the smaller keys, but our C 5-note scale has no accidental, so very simple. All right, I'm taking a little fast, but you get the idea that now the motion of your piston stroke with these 8th notes is a very smooth motion. All right, my mallets are coming straight up and down. I'm trying to hit right in the center. All of that stuff we talked about on the first 3 levels apply here. All right, line number 3 breaks down the F 5-note scale. First in quarter notes. Notice that the left hand is going to move up to the B flat. Right hand hits a C, left hand stays there as I'm moving up and down. So my left hand is playing G and B flat and G. G and B flat and G. So my left hand has the work. My right hand is F, A, and C, my arpeggio. So you might practice it just in quarter notes, just to get that motion that your left hand is moving back and forth. So some of this is understanding the scale pattern of your 5-note scale, 3 naturals, an accidental, and a natural. But some of it too is getting that motion that happens. And we're going to start working as we get better and better. We're going to get more and more technical in our exercises that we're going to play. We're going to play a lot faster. So developing this motion of one hand reaching up to the accidentals, very important. Quarter notes in the first 2 measures, then move to 8th notes in measures 3 and 4. All right, so you want to practice that a bunch of times. Once you get the quarter note motion, pretty soon it becomes really natural. I'm not having to think about it that much of where my left hand is moving back and forth. All right, so with playing percussion, playing all these really fast notes and all these really fast scales is pretty simple, but we have to develop that kinesthetic sense of where our mallet reaches back and forth and which hand does that. All right, when you get to line number 4, we've already done this before. We did it down here in this octave. Now we're going to do it up here. The C 5-note scale. right? That should be very simple at this point. I'll just keep going. Line number 5 breaks down the F major scale, but now we're playing our 5-note scale first. So I know that I'm going to play the entire scale, so I need to be positioned where I'm in between the F on the low end, the high G on the high end. So that puts the C where I need to be here. And then as I'm playing the first measure, I kind of lean in this direction. Then as I move from the C 5-note scale, that direction. So I'm shifting on that quarter rest, right? It becomes natural. You don't really have to think about it that much. You don't have to think 1 and 2 and 3, shift. 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 2 and 3, shift. You don't have to think of it like that. If you just use that natural flow, you'll feel it. You definitely just don't want to stand in one place, turn this direction and turn this direction, right? So allow yourself to shift. All right, so that exercise uses the F major 5-note scale and then the C 5-note scale. C 5-note scale backwards, F 5-note scale backwards. All right, so that traces the F major scale. F major scale is pretty simple. We use that B flat instead of B natural. So never hit the B natural when you're playing the F major scale. Line number 6 is that F major scale up and down. All right, you can practice it first with quarter notes. And then with 8 notes, I don't know if you've noticed, but since I started on my left hand, now my right hand is hitting the B flat or the accidental. All right, so my right hand is moving up. I don't really think about it too much, all right? I just think about that being the 4th note and that my right hand is being used to play it, so I'm just shifting my right hand to play that note. All right. If you're on a really big marimba, you have to shift a lot. If you're on a really tiny bell set, you just shift a little bit. All right. But it's getting used to a little bit of that motion that we have when we're playing our scale. Now, line number 6, instead of quarter notes, it has 8th notes, but all of our 8th notes are double strokes. So I'm thinking of having my mallets here and playing with a double piston stroke and immediately bringing it back to the up position. All right, and of course there's no space in between, so I really want to think of that evenness of stroke. Now reach down. All right, as I'm playing, I'm reaching as I'm going back down, reaching with my right hand to play that B flat. It's not that hard, but you might need to slow it down. Practice it first with quarter notes before you do your double strokes. All right. Again, I'm not doing anything weird with my hands as far as one above the other. If I'm playing my double strokes with piston strokes and always coming back to the up position, the mallet will always be out of the way of each other as you're playing. All right. Line number 7 breaks down the arpeggio. And remember in our last level, we talked about the arpeggio being the chord of whatever scale you're playing. The chord would be the first note, we skip the 2nd note, the 3rd note, we skip the 4th note, and the 5th note. 1, 3, 5. So in the F major scale, in our 5-note scale, F, I skip the G, A, skip the B flat, C. So my arpeggio is F, A, C, and then I repeat the F on the top. All right, that is your arpeggio, which I'm sure you've heard that before. All right, so what we're doing in line number 7 is we're just playing arpeggio with alternated strokes. We're starting on our right hand. So right, left, A, C, 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 F, F, F. And then I alternate. I start with my left hand on the way down. F, 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 S, C, 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 A, F, 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 F. All right? So this line looks and sounds like this. Left hand. All right, and you can repeat it. All right, so again, I'm just using enough velocity to make a good sound. Not think of snapping every single note back up. I'm just thinking of a nice smooth motion. All right, when we get to line number 8, then we have our broken arpeggio with our rhythm pattern that we learned in the previous level. Quarter note on F. Quarter note, quarter note, alternating. So when starting on your left hand, right, left, 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 right, left. All right, so the first two measures are our broken arpeggio, measures 3 and 4. We play the entire arpeggio up and down with the quarter note on the last F. Bit harder than the quarter note back and forth, quarter note on every F back and forth. It's not really that hard. All right, so you might slow it down if you have a difficult time with it. You don't really have time to lean back and forth when you're playing. You can a little bit, but you don't want to over exaggerate it. All right, so your mallets will get, or your hands will get used to playing back and forth. Okay, as we get further and further away without being able to jump from side to side. All right, line number 9 puts our scale and arpeggio together. All right, notice that we start on our left hand. So it's the scale up and down without a break in between. All right, so straight up and down. Or if we start on our left hand, then that means our right hand will play the B flat. So you might practice that a couple of times, and then measures 3 and 4 are our arpeggio. Our arpeggio. All right, so you do the arpeggio twice in this line. Line number 10 is our F major scale, but now we're using that quarter note, eighth note scale pattern, rhythm pattern that a lot of programs like to use for their scales. So a quarter note on each F, and then with my arpeggio, again, quarter note on each F. And then I have 4 eighth notes. You could play your arpeggio twice. All right, but you have to end somewhere. So I like ending with those 4 eighth notes. Okay, so a new scale. Guess what? Every level for a while now, I'm going to introduce a new scale. So the F major scale, you need to memorize the pattern of it. F, A, G, B flat, and get very used to moving your hands to that B flat. If you start on your right hand, your left hand will play up here. If you start on your left hand, your right hand will play up there. It's not really about that motion, is getting used to playing that scale over and over. And we'll have a million scale patterns that we're going to learn through these levels, so you'll get very, very familiar with your F major scale. Don't let it change your nice, relaxed piston stroke as you move through all of these exercises. All right, work on this for at least a couple of weeks. Remember the snare drum part where you're warming up. You got a lot more techniques, different, very specific techniques that you're learning on the snare drum part. Here, we're really learning on scales and scale patterns with that nice, relaxed piston stroke. But you need to warm up on snare drum, play your daily drills every day for 4 minutes, and then on keyboard for 4 minutes as well, at least for a week or so until you get very comfortable with all of those techniques. Then I'll see you in level number 5.